This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast, episode 261, Disney's Silver Age. Welcome to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers, the #1 place to get your animation fix with animation addicts just like you. Each episode, we dive into the wonderful world of animation featuring Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, and everything in between. From hilarious discussions and movie reviews to interviews with industry insiders, this show's mission is to brighten your day through our love of animation. So hop on your nerdy couch, grab some snacks, and get ready to hang out with your animation besties because it's time to dive into today's episode. Hey there, animation addicts. I'm your host, Morgan Stradling.
And I'm Chelsea Robson.
Chelsea, I have a question for you.
I have an answer waiting. I don't know what that answer would be, but...
Silver or gold?
Silver or gold? Do I have, like, jewelry, are we talking?
It's up to you.
All right.
Something would you prefer to own in mass quantities? Obviously.
Mass quantity, you're going to go for the gold, obviously.
If you're to wear it for jewels.
For jewels, I tend to go more for the silver.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm splurging, we'll go platinum. But that's like, I don't have any platinum jewelry. But if I'm splurging, I would. But yeah, silver, I definitely end up more on the silver side. How about you?
Nice. You know what? I was a silver girl for a really, really, really long time, and I'm kind of veering back to gold. Gold came back in vogue, you know?
Right.
Maybe 5 to 7 years ago. Because when I got engaged, I remember thinking, because silver was it. Silver was everything. And I just remember thinking,
or
like,
even white gold. White gold was really it.
Exactly. Like the silver look, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, looking at my mom's wedding ring and even my sister, and like, oh, how pathetic to have gold, old gold.
Yeah.
Right?
Old gold.
And now it's like, oh, I get a gold ring for sure. I wear gold jewelry and necklaces all the time. It's just really funny how style just comes and goes and it changes, and our brain really wraps around it. It's like nothing changed.
Yeah.
Gold was gold. Silver was silver.
We are really that easily swayed. Look at us go.
So speaking of silver, this is going to be a really fun episode. We are continuing our series breaking down the different eras of Walt Disney Animation Studios. And we're going to hit up Disney's Silver Age. Not quite as sparkly as the Golden Age, but still quite good. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Lowe's knows what makes SpringFest savings even better are member-only doorbuster deals. Right now, rewards members can save $40 on an Allen & Roth Chesler Gold faucet. Was $99, now $59. Plus, save $110 on a Cobalt 40-volt battery trimmer and blower combo kit. Was $279, now $169. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 3/24 while supplies last. Program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
The Silver Age.
I honestly don't know why they call this the Silver Age, because if I were to take the beloved feelings that I have for this group of movies versus the Golden Age group of movies, I am definitely way more attracted to these movies than I was to the first five.
I think the first five, which to recap is Snow White, Bambi, Pinocchio, Dumbo, Fantasia. I think just artistically and from just a cinematic perspective, those are just considered the far superior for one way or another.
Yeah.
In these films, we start introducing weird animal sidekick characters, maybe not as iconic, a little bit more goofy, which isn't bad. But the Silver Age was from 1950 to 1967. It's kicked off with Cinderella. It's ended with Jungle Book. There's kind of some discrepancy on when this ends. Some people like to say that Jungle Book is part of the Bronze Age, which is the next age after this, kind of the Dark Ages. Well, yeah, the Bronze Age really is considered the low point for Disney. Right. It's right after Walt Disney died. He died in 1966. So the Jungle Book is the first film to be released without him, although he was very heavily involved. So we're including it. A lot of people include it because it had his fingers, his in that pie. So this is an interesting age. It's some of the hallmarks of this. It's not every single film was a critical success. Cinderella was incredibly successful. Some of these other ones were not. For example, Alice in Wonderland was a critical failure. But when people think of this, they think of the artistry. It's very artistic. It has this painterly look. Just magical, whimsical quality to most of these. Later films in this era, the Xerox era is introduced, which was a quick way and a faster way for them to copy the cells over without having to completely redraw every single cell. So they have more of this sketchy, hand-drawn feel, a little bit more gritty. So there's not a ton of continuity because we do see a shift in technology and just changes. I think when I think of this, I think of 101 Dalmatians is like the epitome of the Xerox era.
Yeah.
But still not worth
to a lesser degree, Sword in the Stone. But
Sword in the Stone, yes. But for me, those don't warrant breaking it into like, oh, well, here's the Silver era and then here's the Xerox era. It's still worth it to kind of include these all together. So it's the longest span that we've seen so far. This is about 17 years. And just all around, just good, solid films. So let's break them down. Cinderella. Wow, it's late, so I'm off on my singing. Cinderella. Do 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 do. Do you recognize that? Anyone?
I do.
Anyone?
It's been a long time since we used that, but we did use.
I still wish we could.
That
I just was always afraid that we were gonna get sued,
right? Which we would have, for the $5 we make after this.
I don't know, but okay. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, so this is the intro song to Cinderella. It's the to go along with the different ranking the Disney songs. This is an opening credit song, and it's just during the opening credits, a little song about Cinderella. Cinderella, she's as something as a something. Da, da, da. Anyways, so for the first, I don't know, 100 episodes, 50, I don't know what it is when we finally switched it over, but we had this song that I really liked, and it was from a Disney Ragtime at the Magic Kingdom CD, and it's by a guy named Chris Calabrese, and he doesn't own the songs, but he owns like the CD, like it's his recording of the, well,
right.
They are his songs because they're like custom written, but they are based on obviously these other popular stuff, right?
Yeah, so he owns the master of this.
Yes. I liked it. And so when he was like, okay, we need a theme song, I was like, well, I like this song, so I'm going to put it. And it, to me, was kind of very Disney-y to me, obviously. And so I loved it, and I thought it was great. And sure, you listen to podcast intros, it's usually like the big, loud, like boom, I'm like, okay, fine, but I don't want that. I don't want that for me. I don't want that for the Rotoscopers. And so I tried emailing this guy countless times before we started the show, during, after. Like, he has a website and he has an email address, and I emailed him multiple times, like, hey, could we use this song, giving credit as our theme song for the podcast? We'll include like links to the CD where people can buy it and reference you, blah, blah, blah. No response. Try again. No response. Like, years I tried doing this, and eventually it's like, does this guy not own an email address? Does his email address go nowhere? I think I tried tweeting the guy. Nothing. Crickets. So eventually, for fear of this person who clearly doesn't care enough to send a cease and desist, or even to say like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Like, there was no reason that he was ever going to come and sue us. But the problem, I think, also came when we started putting our show on YouTube for a period of time.
Yeah.
And then the automatic copyright thing. And we're like, well, we can't have that.
Right.
We switched our theme songs over. So that is our tangent time for today. That's not what the episode is about. But so Cinderella. This was a huge success for the studio. And
it's so good. I love Cinderella.
Cinderella is perfect. She's amazing. She's such a role model. She's a goddess. And it's such a great story. And they really do a great job with it. My only drawback, I guess, is the animal sidekick characters. I like some more than others. Mm-hmm. I like that the mice help her, make the dress. I like the birds. I just don't really love Jacques and Gus Gus and their shenanigans. Mm-hmm. I understand why they have to do it, but I just feel like it could have been like that much even better. But maybe not. Who knows? Lucifer's a great character, but Cinderella, she's great. The prince is great. The king is great. The Grand Duke is great. There's so many things. The animation is wonderful. The transformation scene of Cinderella turning, that supposedly was Walt Disney's favorite piece of animation ever, transforming into her ball gown.
Jeez. I mean, I just think
forever.
about the having a cell of that moment, and just like, oh my gosh. Even when you look at some of the art books that talk about these eras, like there's ones by Charles Solomon. That one, he goes through all of the different types or the different eras of Cinderella, and not just this version, but like the Perrault version and all these others. And then it goes into the live action version of Cinderella, and even the live action version they did such a good job with. Like, I just love everything about Cinderella. I have so much goodwill toward that movie that I would say it has infinity replay value. Like, just put it on. It's not too long. I remember watching this when they put out the DVD. Or it was the Blu-ray, and they had a special screening in theaters, and it was the first time I'd ever seen this in theaters, and it blew me away. It was like, wow, I feel like I'm going back in time watching this. You still see a little bit of the sketchiness on the scene, and like, it was just so good. And we could go on and on about Cinderella. It's so good.
But we won't. We must move on.
We must.
1 year later, Alice in Wonderland, 1951. We actually just reviewed this recently.
We did.
Long requested. And they were going to initially make this as a live action film, but they've decided to make it in animation, which I think was such a good choice.
Yes.
Animation or live action had been attempted so many times before with this, and this is kind of like an overdone property at this point. But animation really allowed it's not the gimmicks, but just the absurdity of this story, it really allowed it to shine and not be weird and creepy.
Right. They chose their moments well based on hearing what Jonathan was talking about as far as like how creepy it got in some of the other versions.
Oh yeah, the long neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look at some of the things that they chose, and they kidified it enough that there's different characters in there that you'll always remember, and you have different voice actors that are just going to stick with you forever. And even like if I look at the cover art for Alice in Wonderland, I'm like, that looks fun. Let's watch it, you know. It wasn't my favorite. I didn't enjoy it very much. It's too wacky for me, even this version, but I definitely go through and can see the pluses and minuses, and I can see all the pluses and be like, yeah, I acknowledge there are good things here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like Alice in Wonderland enough, but I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it all the time. It's just never, like I talked about in the episode, which I'm not going to spoil. You should go back and watch it. It's a good one. But it just wasn't one of my favorites growing up. But I really appreciate the artistry, the Mary Blair of it all.
Yeah.
She was really pivotal in Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan. Those were kind of the three. And when I think of Mary Blair, I can picture very specific concept art that she did. So moving on to 1953, Peter Pan. I love Peter Pan.
Me too. Yeah.
I always would watch Peter Pan. It's like Alice in Wonderland, where it's more of like the whimsical fairy tale, but it's just, for me, a lot more fun. And I think because it's not totally wacky, it's a little bit more grounded in reality.
Yeah, it's just a little playful.
Mm-hmm. I love the mermaids. I love Captain Hook. He's just such an amazing villain. I love Peter. I love the Lost Boys. I like Wendy. I like her brothers. Like
Tinkerbell is, you can't get much more iconic than Tinkerbell.
Right. Yeah. So good. Next up is Lady and the Tramp, 1955.
No, it's
sweet. A good one. Every time I watch it, I don't want to turn it off. It's really good. It's really engaging. It's just such a funny story because it's really just kind of meanders along. Story of this dog.
And as you say meanders, I see the dogs meandering along.
Yeah,
I see
they're just kind of like trotting along and they're just being dogs.
Yeah.
But it works so well. Jock and Trusty. Cute.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have Sleeping Beauty.
I love Sleeping Beauty.
1959, and gorgeous. Gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. I mean, just how everything is laid out, the artistry of it is just phenomenal. And the music, I was always a fan of how they were able to really adapt this score to this film. And
from the ballet.
Yes. And I love the good and evil side of it. I love the mistress of all evil. Oh, goodness. She's so good. And I just see a lot of Mark Davis. There's specific pictures that I can see in my head of his artwork of preparing for Maleficent. And it's just like, oh, so beautiful and so majestically evil. It's lovely. Prince Philip, he's our prince. He's the guy. So many good things.
Philip. He's great. He's the best. Yeah. You know, and people like to harp on Sleeping Beauty or Aurora for not being the greatest princess. And, you know, she doesn't say a lot, but it's kind of the point. And we've talked about this. It's not her story.
Yeah.
Surprisingly. It's his story. At least in this version.
Yeah. His and the three fairies.
Yeah. And that's okay. And that's different than from, you know, at this point, there really hadn't been an established princess trope. You know, she's only number 3 to come up.
Right.
But when you add on all the other ones and what happened, she does seem like an outlier. And like she had nothing to do with her story. But, you know, that was the story. Sleeping Beauty. She's sleeping for a long time.
Let it be a story.
Yeah. Yep. Next up, 101 Dalmatians. This is where we start seeing a little bit more of a shift. This is the first film of Disney's, which was in a contemporary setting. Lady and the Tramp, while it was a little bit more updated, it's still kind of set in 1920s, but this was set kind of essentially at the same time period, like 1960s. And Xerox was introduced starting here, and such a drastic shift from Sleeping Beauty to 101 Dalmatians.
Yes.
The color palette of Sleeping Beauty, it's really emotional and it's stark, and there's the purples and the greens and the blacks and very contrasting. And then we get 101 Dalmatians, not to compare in any way. You know, that's 2 years later, 1961, but it's just different. More modern, a little more rough around the edges, less polished, a love this story. I always would watch 100 Dalmatians. Like every time I'm like going down these lists, I'm like, how many? I really wish there was some sort of counter in heaven that would tell me like how many times I really did watch these movies, because I feel like it's dozens
at least.
I rarely let it's very specific when I let my kids watch TV. It's like for one 30-minute show or one like half of a movie. Like it's so strict. But I'm like, nope, that wasn't my mom.
Right. Not at all.
Because I've watched this dozens of times.
Yeah.
But again, of course, over 8, I'm talking just like through the first 18 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good one.
It is a good one. I've always really I love Pongo and Perdita. I love Lucky. I love all of the Rolly, the specific dogs those are really the only specific dogs But I mean, Cruella de Vil, the fact that we had a full episode on whether or not she can be sued or she can sue Roger for defamation.
That's why nerdy couch discussions were invented.
Yes.
For episodes just like that.
Just like that. I mean, it has so many things about it. And they, when they later on, they remade it. And that first one, I still quote, there's that moment where he ends up riding his bike into the lake. And you have the old ladies sitting on the bench and they're like, I don't think he wanted to do that. I quote that line all the time. I don't think I wanted to do that. But I mean, I actually look at this film and I just see more fun. Like all the other ones were a little bit more thoughtful and a lot more like they cared about a lot of things, and you care about a lot of things. But this one, I think the fact that it was more sketchy, the animation itself wasn't as highbrow. It let the story be a little bit more just endearing, the story itself.
Yeah. Next up, Sword in the Stone, 1963. It's about the iconic Sword in the Stone. I actually read this book. So this is based off T.H. White's novel. He wrote, I think, 4 of them. There's a 5th, but people don't like that one. And so they don't really include it as part of the canon. But it's basically, he took all the different stories and legends about King Arthur and he formed it into his own novel. And the first one is called The Sword in the Stone. And then there's 3 others. I'm in the process of reading those. But then later they compiled these 4 books into one book called The Once and Future King. And I never knew about this book series at all, or this book, I guess. They're this mini books, but they're long books. Anyways, this specific Sword in the Stone is based on this book, The Sword in the Stone. And it's interesting because this is a very influential book. It kind of is one of the pillars in the fantasy genre. Merlin, and talking about the book now, not necessarily the movie quite yet, but Merlin and Arthur's relationship is very interesting. And there's so many parallels between J.K. Rowling and the Harry Potter series with Dumbledore and Harry. Like once you read this book and then you look back at their relationship, and she's even said like, yes, it was an inspiration. Like it's so clear. It's just really cool. Anyways, so The Sword in the Stone, based on that first book. And it really is based on that first book where he goes and he's teaching him these lessons through transforming into different animals and whatnot. And it's pretty cool. It does feel episodic in a way. And the book felt that way. It was like, all right, what animal are you going to turn to this chapter?
Right.
So it kind of got boring in the middle because it was just like, okay, we're turning into something else, like for the 7th time. Like, let's do something different, But he learns different things about how to be a good leader through that. We don't see quite as many in the movie as he does. But yeah, it's good. And, this one I never owned, so it wasn't necessarily one that I kept going back to time and time again. But I like it when I watch it. But it's still kind of missing something for me. And I think it's episodic.
Yeah, it's slow.
In a way.
Even when it gets to the end, it's just kind of like I guess we're here. I mean, he's sitting on the throne like, okay, now what? So you don't have nearly as much of the hero's journey. It's a lot easier to follow these films when you have a clear cut, this is the story,
Yeah. But apparently they say the story really gets going in the future books.
Okay, good.
When his relationship with Guinevere and Lancelot, it's really, really good. So I got to get myself there. Okay, last one. The Jungle Book, 1967. We talked about how Walt was not alive when this was released, but his hands were involved in this.
I really like this movie.
This one's so good. You really can't go wrong with The Jungle Book, it's fun. The story progresses really nicely. The characters are good. Songs are good.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's all around good.
Yeah, it's very succinct. You know what the story is. Now, having gone back and read the book, there's still moments that I'm like, if only we knew more about Bagheera, because he's got a backstory that no movie ever goes into this backstory, which is so great. So if you want to know,
read it.
Yes. If you also want to know about it and you don't want to read it, you can go listen to our Jungle Book episode. I go through it, but it's
I've clearly forgotten.
But he does have a very interesting and like provocative almost backstory that you're like, wow, I have no idea why nobody's ever like leaned into this.
Yeah,
but it's good.
Cool. Okay, so this is the Silver Age. All like quite a variety of films that are really starting to hit their stride at this point in time. But you can also see how maybe toward the late 50s, maybe 60s specifically, Walt's attention was elsewhere. It was towards Disneyland and some of these the TV properties. Like he was just it's getting so big. You can see how maybe the magic Disney touch isn't quite there with some of these other ones. They're still good and great. We like them all, but so. Do you have a ranking?
I do.
Or
yes.
Okay.
My lowest, I'm going to start with Alice in Wonderland and then building up to Sword in the Stone. And then I'm going to say Peter Pan, followed by Lady and the Tramp, Jungle Book, 101 Dalmatians. And I kept going back and forth on whether or not, on which one was the real like winner of this, Sleeping Beauty or Cinderella. But I think I'm going to go with Sleeping Beauty and then number 1, Cinderella.
Okay. We're going to have similarities. So number 8, Alice in Wonderland. Number 7, Sword in the Stone. Number 6, 101 Dalmatians. It hurt me to do that because it's so good. See it so low makes me sad, but these other ones are better. 5, Jungle Book. 4, Lady and the Tramp. 3, Peter Pan. 2, Sleeping Beauty. As much as I love Sleeping Beauty, it's so good. Cinderella. Cream of the crop.
Yeah.
Number 1. So there you go. I want to go watch it right now.
Yay. I want to know what you guys how you're ranking these things. If you are agreeing with us, then let us know. If you disagree with us, even more interesting, tell us why. So go to rotoscopers.com/262. It just keeps going up.
It's funny how they do that.
Yeah, it happens. 1 week at a time. So head on over there. Until next time, we are the Rotoscopers.
Ooh, dog series coming up.
Yes.
Nice. I love how you're like, yeah, a lot of them just kind of fit into Halloween. So
they work.
Fair. Yeah.
Like throw Scooby-Doo in there. Yeah, that's Halloween. Frankenweenie. Yep. All right.
You've been listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to help spread the word, be sure to share the podcast with your friends on social media. Just don't forget to tag us at Rotoscopers on Instagram and use the hashtag Animation Addicts. For all the links and full show notes for this episode, go to rotoscopers.com/podcast. Now, if you still can't get enough for your animation fix, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and visit rotoscopers.com for more animation news, reviews, and interviews. Thanks for listening.